Now that our children are using AI for more and more different parts in their lives, I was wondering how we can still make sure that they learn most important skills and abilities like decision making, empathy, problem solving qualities, or critical thinking. And this is today's topic in our podcast, Who Do You Want to Be? Hi, Abba. Very, very happy to be here with you today. How are you?
So happy to see you. And I'm so excited about this topic because it is so important as we raise our kids in a world that's going to be totally AI first.
This is, I think, a topic that most parents will have thought about already. And I can tell you one example of last week. I went to Dubai Hills Mall because this is where my daughter and me, we have our piano lessons. And we were a bit early, so we wanted to go and eat something. And while we were in the car driving towards Dubai Hills Mall, I asked my daughter, "So, Mouse, where do you want to go for food? What do you want to eat?" And she said, "Oh, I can't decide. Can you give me three options?" And I give three options, and then you decide. So I gave her three options. She gave me three options, and then she wanted me to decide. And I told her, "Well, I asked you if you wanted to eat something, so why don't you decide? You will know what you feel like. What do you want to eat?" And this conversation continued for almost 10 minutes. I'm not kidding, almost 10 minutes, because my daughter was unable to make such a very, very simple decision. And I was just really wondering in that moment now if she had a phone with her. She actually asked me for my phone. She wanted to use my phone to make her decision. She might ask, for example, any AI tool, "These are my options for today. What do you suggest I should eat for lunch or for dinner or whatever else?" And I don't want my daughter to get used to asking an AI tool what she should do in life. And so this is why I'm so, so interested in having this discussion today, because this is just one very small example, but we can look into so many other examples for critical thinking, creativity, other decision making, or even empathy, how to resolve conflicts as well. All of those are skills that at least I learned firsthand with involving other human beings, but now our children have different options. So how can we make sure that they learn all of this in the right way?
Yeah, it's a conundrum, to be honest with you. And I don't have the answer, and I don't think anybody does. And it all comes down to something we talk about a lot, which is our values and how we want to bring up our kids and integrate these tools into their lives, right? So in this scenario, you could argue, well, our kids have decision fatigue. It's a problem. There's too many options. Our kids are growing up in a world where whether it's choices for food, or you go to a toy shop and you try and find something to buy, or any watching TV, there is decision fatigue, right? They just can't decide because they have so many options. Now, in this case, what if they just briefed AI on what they liked, and then AI would say, okay, based on what we know about you, this is what you should watch, finish. End of story, right? This is one side of the argument. I'm not saying this is what should happen, but I'm just saying, is it a way to reduce our decision fatigue? Or is it something that we really need to keep our own and therefore teach our children that they really need to be able to think and make certain decisions on their own? Or is it somewhere in between, where depending on the difficulty of the decision, you take support from either a parent or a tool like ChatGPT or Grok or Gemini or Claude that really helps decision making? So I think it's very nuanced. I think in our case, my kids are a little bit smaller, so decision fatigue and making a decision is something we don't really give them many options. We just say it's this or this, and that's it. But other things, like you mentioned, like their ability to think critically, like how do we induce critical thinking into them when they are also being bombarded with so much? Where can AI play a role? And AI can play a role by, giving them games in which they can use their brain to think critically. Again, I don't know if that's the best way to teach them critical thinking. But then what are the other ways?
Yeah, I think this is probably the most difficult part of this conversation or generally of this consideration. What is the right thing to do? And also, where is the right balance? So, how much exposure do I want to give my children to AI tools when it comes to creating and building these skills and experiences? And where do I make a cut and say, all right, you've experienced this with AI now, and now I'm going to show you how to do this, let's say in a human interaction, for example. And I believe when we are considering how our children will grow up, keep growing up, and how they will ultimately live their life surrounded by probably even AI solutions that we can't even think of at this very moment. Of course, it is extremely crucial for them to understand AI, to know, okay, what is it there for? How do I use it? But also, how do I keep control over it? And also, how do I, for myself, decide whether I am now going to follow AI's ideas or where am I going to say, okay, this was a nice inspiration, but in the end, it's not at all what I want to do. So I'm deciding to do it differently. I think that this is definitely something that we need to educate our children on. But on the other hand, in my honest opinion, it should still be a majority on human interaction. So, for example, also, how do I have a debate with another human being? Right? It's a very different thing to discuss a topic with AI rather than discussing a topic with a human who is obviously also biased, also emotional, also has their very own opinion and is not neutral and objective compared to the AI tool that I'm going to speak to. So finding a balance between allowing our children to play a little bit with AI and seeing, okay, what's the output that I'm receiving, but also to enable them to understand the differences. So to see, all right, if I am discussing this with a human, then the potential outcome is this, this, and that. And then my options to work with this are the following. Compared to these are the options that AI is giving me. And now I have the opportunity to do either A, B, or C and ultimately to allow our children also to have a healthy judgment of what their preferences are and to live by their preferences too.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what it should be like. We have to find the right balance. But the other interesting angle to all of this is we actually don't know how these tools are going to work. So we actually don't know how they can help or not help our children in a way that they're going to be 2 years from now. I'll give you an example. So my daughter has started using the app Synthesis. It's a math tutor that has been formed, I believe, under the foundation of SpaceX. So it's supported by Elon Musk. So very interesting. So we are experimenting with it. She's using it to learn math under supervision. But when it comes to her progressing in the app actually asks her, are you ready to move forward? Or do you need some more thinking time? Or do you need my help in understanding any concept that is not clear to you? And what I was interested to see was that my daughter wasn't just saying, go ahead, keep going, as like I thought she would. She was actually saying, I didn't understand that. Can you help me understand it better? She was actually choosing that option. And then the app would change its interface and go back a level to help her understand it before she moves forward. So again, coming to that, whatever AI we end up using for our children would have to be very well vetted. Like we would really have to know how it works, how it can therefore help your child so that we can intervene at the right time. So we don't let her do it unsupervised. She's sitting next to us and we can hear what the AI is saying. And we keep telling her that this AI is a machine because the AI gets very friendly, which is another challenge, again, which we've discussed in other episodes. You know, AI is not a social being, even though because she's a 7-year-old, they are talking to her like a 7-year-old. So when she makes a mistake, they're like, oh no, come on, you can do better than that. So that's what she says, you know. And she was learning fractions. So one of the ways they were teaching her to learn fractions was they're like, this is an empty screen. I want you to smash the screen. So she just taps it and the screen smashes into multiple pieces. So it's very
Wow.
engaging and and then that's how they started talking about fractions. But they talk in a very curious way. So it's very nuanced. And I feel like while we 100% need to have balance, we also need to be very open to what these tools have to offer because I feel like we just don't know. We cannot comprehend the good of them and maybe the bad of them yet.
Hmm, that's true. I love the example that you just mentioned because this morning I had a conversation with my husband in the car. He was about to drop me off on his way to work. And we were talking about our daughter's school education. So now the summer break is here and the new school year is about to start very soon. And we were honestly a little bit concerned that she might not enjoy school as much anymore because now in this school year it showed that she was ahead of most of the kids in her class, and we actually approached the teacher and we asked, is there anything that you can offer her so that she can keep herself entertained while she's waiting for the others to solve her tasks, or can you give her anything that's actually a bit more difficult so that she feels challenged? Because in my view, school should keep an eye on kids of all ability levels, and everyone should be equally supported. Now, unfortunately, we did not receive the support from school that we were looking for. They were just telling us, "Oh yeah, there are extra tasks that can be handed out." But I asked my daughter a couple of weeks later, and she said, "No, I didn't receive anything, and no, I'm just drawing while I'm waiting for the others," which is really also not the best use of our money, I dare say, since schools are so extremely expensive. And so now, point being, my husband and me, we were looking into other opportunities to actually challenge our daughter and to help her develop new skills and learn more. And our first idea was to look into different AI ideas. And now that you've just been describing this fantastic math tool, I'm quite sure that there will be many others out there. Maybe there's something around science about chemistry, physics, biology, whatever it might be, or even other languages, so that she might turn towards those tools to just, trigger curiosity, learn something new, rather than, and I'm sorry to say that, but being dependent on a school system that is not able to meet her needs in that sense.
100%. And that's the gap that AI can fill because the truth is, schools have their own problems. They are stretched, they have their own challenges to deal with. That fortunately, unfortunately, there are limitations. But I think the introduction of AI into our kids' lives and into schools, and we've also discussed this in a previous episode, is going to be good because it should, if implemented properly, help fill these gaps. So hopefully, if you do your due diligence and your research properly, which I'm sure you will find the right tool to fill the gap and help your child continue developing at her pace and continue being challenged because you can set the level of challenge in the AI app. And the other interesting thing is from synthesis, every time Ria uses it, we get a summary of how she did.
Hmm.
So it talks about how Ria did really well in this. We thought that her ability to think through this scenario in this math problem was quite above like the average IQ level of a 7-year-old. However, she could do with a little more support in this because, so you get a report, an instant report on how her interaction was. So I think this is just a small example of the integration of human intelligence and artificial intelligence, the whole basis of this podcast, this world we're entering, and the most fruit we're going to bear from the introduction of AI into our lives is if we really learn how to integrate it with our own intelligence. And that's just the bottom line. And it really is going to come back to that because it's very easy with these tools even for us to get lazy. So let alone our kids, it's going to be even easier for them. So again, how can we encourage them to continue to use their brain while also making the most of the tools that they have at their disposal? And it is nuanced and it is complex, but we all have to get on the bandwagon. So as we enter this AI first world, we have to keep an open mind, because the only way we're going to be able to get most of it for ourselves and for our children and ensure that they are developing the human skills that they need in the right way, and they're not seeing big gaps in their development despite everything, is by looking for the right AI tools to fill those gaps, and then us thinking about them critically, and then working with our kids to make sure they get the most from these tools. There's no one answer, there's no one direction, there's no one app, there's no one way to do things, there's no right or wrong in this. But the worst thing we can do is close our minds to it. So we have to keep an open mind, and we really hope that today, with this little conversation, it has helped you open your mind a little bit more onto what's possible for our children moving forward. Thank you for listening. We hope you found that useful as always, and we'll see you again next week.